We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
And here we go again, reaching out to the four corners of the globe and broadcasting to you live from the studios of LA Talk Live, just outside of LAX Airport in beautiful, sunny, bright LA. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new episode of The Marijualogist, the world's only show that gets to the roots of medical cannabis efficacy and explores the social, political, economic, and medicinal impact of cannabis on Los Angeles, on California, and the entire globe. I'm your humble host, Richard Carr, and we've got a very, very exciting show for you today. First and foremost, let me make an announcement. We're going to be moving to Fridays at 4 p.m. That's right, Fridays at 4 p.m. as we stack our Fridays to be a super lineup of super shows. So the Marijualogist will be moving starting next month, that's next Friday, to 4 p.m. Fridays. And that way, on your way home, when you get home, on your mobile device, and now in cars, you can check us out no matter where you are and get educated about this miracle medicine that has been with mankind since time immemorial. We're here to explore that today. We've got a very, very special guest. In fact, one of the first guests of the first shows that we ever produced to explore this topic, the Marijualogist, retired police officer Peter Crisp and the co-founder of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition will be joining us live via Skype. That's right, live via Skype. Peter Crisp from LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. In the interim, and as we go to the break, go to their website, leap, leap.cc. That's leap.cc. Go check them out. On the comeback after the break, we're going to be playing a little bit of a caption from some of his incredible dialogue while at the Rotary Club in St. Albans, New York. He is, in fact, a New Yorker. So we're going to come back, introduce the panel, bring on this special guest at the bottom of the hour. You won't want to miss this show. It's going to be very special. Welcome to the Marijualogist. Get educated. We'll be right back right after this.
It's a menage a trois from the woman's point of view. P.R. Hawkins brings you this live stage adaptation of excerpts from her sensational ebook, Menage a Trois. This show is for the grown and sexy. Don't miss this limited engagement playing at the Hudson Main Stage Theater in Hollywood.
Hubert's Lemonade, tasty, refreshing, sweet, and tart. Happiness in a bottle. Visit Hubert's Lemonade at hubertslemonade.com. Once again, that's hubertslemonade.com. Happiness in a bottle. Xavier Tees and Tots, groundbreaking fashion, forward street smart designs. Tees and Tots for men, women, and boys. Visit XavierUSA.com. Once again, that's XavierUSA.com.
Yeah, this is the Hip Hop School of Arts, y'all. And all you gotta do is dream, believe, and create. So let's go. This is the first hip hop school in the world, given to the youth in the heart of P-Town, Pomona. Come through, visit the facility, take a long look. Right now we're making history, all the elements of hip hop under one roof, and you can learn every one if you want, like popping, rocking, DJing, and urban art, beatboxing, and b-boying, and entrepreneurship. That's how we doing it. You see, our mission is to provide a technical trade program worldwide to transform each student's creative energy into marketable skills you seek through education, guidance, and self-expression. And I'm the one who can teach you how to MC. The Hip Hop School of Arts is the place to be, so let's go. Visit hiphopschoolofarts.org or stop by the facility at 499 North Gary Avenue in Pomona, California for more info. You can also call us at 909-622-4472. Be a part of something special.
Don't give me no Bammer weeds. We don't smoke that shit in a SLC. Don't give me no Bammer weeds. We don't smoke that shit in a SLC. Don't give me no Bammer weeds. We don't smoke that shit in a SLC. Don't give me no Bammer weeds. We don't smoke that shit in a SLC.
So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of The Marijualogist, the world's only show that gets to the root of medical cannabis efficacy and explores the social, economic, political, and medicinal impact of cannabis on California and the entire globe. I'm your humble host, Richard Carr. In the background, a little funny song by RBL Posse, Bammer Weed. That's, I thought, would be a funny little comeback for us on this show, where we talk about something commonly referred to, colloquially perhaps, as weed. Now, as you know, if you are a longtime listener, especially in our early days, I don't like those colloquial references to this great medicine. I call it cannabis for a specific reason, because it is, in fact, the name of its genus as a plant. And I think it's important that we recognize that and respect that, because I think too much has been made of the use of cannabis, either through self-medication, through accessing it through your street dealer, and now, of course, as we evolve, 20 states now recognize and, in fact, have laws on the books that have decriminalized cannabis, at least for medicinal and or recreational use. And I think that's a very important milestone in this country, especially considering how detrimental the laws for minor possession of cannabis have been to the black and brown community. We will not wax too philosophical tonight on that topic. We've got some very important people who've joined us on our show tonight. I'd like to start by telling you that at the bottom of the hour, we've got one of the first intelligent minds we brought to this forum, the Marijualogist. His name is Peter Christ. He is the co-founder of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Now, mind you, our discussion will expand tonight with his involvement to the topic of overall decriminalization of all so-called drugs. He has a very interesting and unique perspective on that, particularly considering that he is a retired police captain of some 20 years.
Wow.
And again, co-founder of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Mm-hmm. Now, before we go to our panel in studio, he'll be joining us by Skype, by the way, I want to play a little clip of some of what you'll hear tonight from, again, the co-founder of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and in fact, a retired police captain of 20 years. Check this out.
I am Peter Christ. I'm one of the co-founders of LEAP, which stands for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was formed back in 2002 to bring a voice to law enforcement on drug policy reform. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. We are a membership organization. If you agree with what we say here today and you want to do a little bit more than just agree, you can sign the form, print your name, your email address, and your zip code on the form on the table over there, and you will be put on our mailing list. Doesn't cost anything. If you want to join, you can sign up and pay $25 for your membership, but that's your choice. But it gives you puts you on our mailing list so you can keep in touch with what's going on. And we share our mailing list with no one. And we very seldom, maybe one email a month we send out just to remind people about stuff that's going on. And one other thing, if you do sign up today at one of these presentations and become a supporter, you'll leave here with one of these little gold lapel pin badges. And why we think these are important is this is sometimes a little difficult issue to bring up and talk about, but if you got one of these little gold badges on, I'm sure somebody's going to ask you, what's that? And my attitude is, heck, if somebody's going to ask you something, you can answer anything you want to, so that's your choice, all right? So that's that. who am I? I'm a retired police captain. I worked for 20 years for the town of Tonawanda Police Department. It's a suburb of the city of Buffalo. And for any of you wondering if I was the captain, what did the other 4 guys do in the town of? It was a little bit bigger than that. We served a community of roughly 85,000 people. We had about 120 officer police department. I came in as a rookie patrolman in 1969, and I retired as a patrol captain in 1989. And then immediately got involved in the issue that I'm going to be talking about today, which is drug policy, because I saw the failure of this policy every day that I worked, and I saw the harm that it was doing to the society that I live in and to my profession. And what that policy is a policy of prohibition. We are law enforcement against prohibition. Now, I'm going to be talking primarily about drug prohibition today, but we are not limited to just that. We are against a policy within a free society that prohibits consensual adult behavior. When you have things that consenting adults want to do together and you prohibit that behavior, the people that want to do it don't stop doing it. They just hide it now. And it goes on. And you also create crime in your society, because this consensual adult behavior, I just want to be clear about what I mean by consensual adult behavior. Go along with me on this, will you? Just go along with me on this.
Well, there's a taste of it. I wanted to get you a little taste of what you're going to hear live with the Marijualogist today. Peter Criss will be joining us after the break at the bottom of the hour to talk to you, our audience, directly. For any of you who have any question about the topic of cannabis and who want to know some real frontline truths, realities about the absolute abject failure of the war on drugs in America, how costly that war has been, not just to the country in terms of taxes, but also to these noble men and women who serve as police officers and their families for the loss of lives that have obviously taken place in the battle, and to the families of victims of drugs and this country's ignorance in how to appropriately deal with people who have medical problems, not criminal problems. I want to take some time out now to introduce our illustrious panel. We are pretty stacked today. To my immediate right, our returning champion, Brother Tariq, one of the co-hosts yesterday on the last episode of Speak On It for the season. Will be returning in 2015. Brother Tariq, welcome back.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today on The Marijualogist.
Thank you, sir.
This show will continue and move, in fact, till Friday at 4 p.m., so be sure to stay tuned for that.
Right.
To his right, the co-host of this show, a very lovely lady and so knowledgeable. We have to have a woman on our panel at all times to balance out some of the dialogue that we have here. We have to hear from the mothers, the sisters,
That's right.
the aunts. We have the Green Goddess who joins us
Hello
again
up
here on our
there.
panel.
How's everybody? Thank you.
We have a very special guest, but before we get to him, I also want to welcome back another returning champion, Eddie Lamons, who joins us on the mic again.
Love, peace and love.
Indeed.
Peace and love.
Eddie was with me on our final episode of Speak On It for the season, and he is, in fact, going to be taking over the mantle for a few weeks to produce his own show.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that show.
Superforce Radio, the urban lounge of radio TV, is all about opening the minds of the people of the planet. And we choose to do that with something that I like to call incredible truths, which whether you find them in the medical industry, the industry of law, manufacturing, whatever, so whatever it takes to free the mind, so which gives you the opportunity to make a fair and proper decision for yourself, That's what Superforce Radio is about.
And there it is. And that's starting next Friday at 6 p.m. in my old time slot, my old job.
Oh, man. Thank you.
No, knock it off. So welcome back to the
Yes,
panel.
sir. Thank you, brother. Glad to be here.
Now, this brother will be launching his inaugural broadcast and his first new show here on the Talk Live Broadcast Network, and specifically LA Talk Live, and comes to us as a veteran sergeant of the Los Angeles Police Department, former decorated United States Marine sergeant. We're going to see him a lot because he's also, well, first of all, I want to thank him for joining me here on the Marijualogist tonight as we welcome back Peter Christ, which is a very monumental moment for this show because, you know, we're not new to this, we're true to this. We've been talking about this issue of medical cannabis and the ridiculous drug war for many, many years. In fact, it's how the station started. I won't bore you with the details right now, back in 2009. But this brother came to our studio and appeared on one of our shows and immediately saw this as a very viable medium for him to express his unique views. And again, let me repeat, a veteran sergeant of the LAPD and former decorated United States Marine. So you'll see him, sergeant, that is, Marine sergeant. You'll see him again tomorrow on Veterans Day Live. I will ask him to restrict his comments to this topic because I know he's going to go off tomorrow on Veterans Day Live. And then, of course, it all unleashes next Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific for Probable Cause. I'd like to tell you how honored I am to welcome this brother to our network and to my show, Brother Randy Franklin, Sergeant.
Thank you very much for having me.
Franklin.
I really appreciate it.
I like to call him.
Thank you.
Indeed. Wow. You know, I would be remiss in my own opinion. I'd be delinquent in my responsibilities to not, in some way or another, frame this show in the context of what we're seeing in the streets of America and the heavy-handedness of law enforcement as it relates to the recent spate of shootings of black men. And let us not forget the trooper who was doing an MMC pounding on a black woman at the side of the road. Where was he when some pregnant woman needed her tire changed somewhere perhaps 5 miles down? Had he not taken the time and effort to beat up a black woman, he might have saved a life. Who knows?
Beat up a woman, period.
We're
man.
talking. Come on. This is not Speak On It, and we want to say all this in the context of the Marijualogist and what we talk about, medical cannabis efficacy,
Yes, sir.
but also we talk politically about the impact of cannabis socially, politically, economically, and medically. And this is the reason why I was so excited to get Randy Franklin on tonight in honor of having Peter Christ on, Captain Peter Christ, co-founder of LEAP, LEAP.cc. Because I wanted to kind of frame tonight's conversation again in the context of what we're seeing in police aggression in the streets of America, what we have to acknowledge as the disproportional incarceration of black and brown men for minor possession of cannabis in particular and as drugs as a whole. We won't talk about the kingpins. Take them, feed them to the sharks. For all that they do wrong to our communities and how they absolutely rip apart the families, turning parents to dope fiends. We all are old enough in this room to remember the crack era.
Yes, sir.
But again, we're going to kind of frame this because it is the Marijualogist. We want to talk about drug policy in this country. The overarching issue is that, of course. So I want to first open the conversation by asking our panel, and get in where you fit in, about the recent shooting. I believe that was in South Carolina. Particularly Sergeant Randy Franklin.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you, man, are the cops that lousy at shooting? Don't they still take them to the gun range? 4 shots, one grazed his hip. Where did the other 3 bullets go? God forbid thank God they hit a blank target, because they could have gone anywhere in broad daylight in that little busy station. Children, women, anything could have happened.
Like
4
a
shots,
gas tank.
1 hit. What the hell? So, what are your opinions?
My opinion
Get
is,
in where you fit in.
and I'm going to tell you right now, my opinion is they should have arrested him But the problem with arresting him, they arrested him for the wrong thing. I have no idea how they got aggravated battery out of shooting someone. I have no idea. He should have been arrested for attempted murder.
Right.
If you would have shot at a cop and grazed him and hit him, you would be up for attempted murder.
Absolutely.
I tell you all the time that most of the cops we hire are afraid. You ever watch Andy Griffin, Mayberry? You see
Barney,
Barney
right.
5? You should have saw this guy. He looked like Barney 5. He was like, "Get over there, get over there!"
He was paranoid. He was.
You can go to any gun range you want, but if you don't watch your sights, you're not going to hit anything.
The notion, we played the audio for it. People have seen it enough. It's been all over the news. The notion that a police officer, I was going to say another human being, but a police officer would draw down that quickly and begin to lick off 4 shots at someone who, even if he perceived the move as aggressive, should have thought in his mind, all the years if I pull this trigger, and not wait until he at least saw another weapon come out of the car. And if you did see the video, you saw how submissive and compliant this young man was. He was so compliant, he got excited and like, oh shit, let me get my wallet. Hold on, what you need? Let me just settle this real quick. And still got popped.
And that was the policeman's fault. I'm going to tell you right now is who you hire. And most time, I tell you on my show, that 90% of the time we're hiring these people that have never been in your neighborhood. They don't go to your neighborhood, and they're fearful of your neighborhood.
That's right.
Right.
So the first thing is he shouldn't have had his gun out in the first place because he stopped him for an infraction.
Right.
So therefore, there was no
seat belt infraction, Sarge.
There's no need to have your gun out on an infraction. None. But he had his gun out already. There was no threat to him. And second of all, the guy got out of the car and the police told him what to do, and he responded to what the police. Where's your ID and where's your wallet? If the guy said, well, I need you to stand over here, and where's your wallet? It's in the car, then you can go get the wallet for him. But you can tell the policeman was already drawn out with his gun pointed at him.
Ready.
When he asked for the wallet, the gun was already pointed at him. So why did you need your gun out? So in police, and that's why they should go to jail. So you have to look at when you draw, you are judged from the time you draw your weapon till the time you fire it. So from the time he drew his weapon till he fired it. But they responded really quickly by arresting him. But I want you to know they arrested him for
the
caca.
wrong reason.
This is completely caca that they arrested him for. They didn't want another St. Louis, so they arrested him for the least amount of charge they can, a misdemeanor, for discharging your weapon at another human being. So you gotta say maybe they thought the black guy isn't a human being, so that's why they gave him that charge.
Now, before you ask that question, I'm sorry, before you pose that question, I want to take a moment out to get Randy to tell our listeners a little bit about your background. I was very brief in my description and introduction. You aren't speaking from, pardon me for saying, with all due respect, our side of this issue. You, in fact, are a retired Los Angeles police officer.
No, I'm a current Los Angeles police officer.
You haven't retired yet, Randy?
No, but I don't speak for them.
And you speak
I
this
speak
openly?
for me.
I thought you had retired, brother.
Forget them. Listen, I'm only teaching.
And you understand, you can say fuck them because we're not FCC regulated.
I know.
But don't. And we're not encouraging.
But yeah, I speak for me. I teach the law in the manual of the radio because you should know it. Right. If they wrote articles on me, I spent 30 years on the police department letting people go because the police don't understand what they do. They don't understand basic laws. But I realize we don't understand them either.
No.
On my show, I say if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights.
You ain't got no rights.
You don't have
You're
any.
going to make a T-shirt. Hashtag that.
You only have the rights I give you in the middle of the night, and I don't give you many. So you need to understand what your rights are. I tell people all the time. But no, I currently work for them. Wow. So I'll retire soon.
Fascinating.
But I still work for them. But it's like a preacher who teach you the Bible. I'm just teaching you the law, and I'm teaching you policy.
And that's good intent.
And I teach you.
And no one can knock that.
No. And I teach you that the police is not on your side.
No.
They're not.
They're there.
And we have the district attorney that's on our side. That's why you never see a filing on these shootings.
Right, because the DA.
Because they're on our side, so they hold them all in policy, which only leaves you to go out to get an attorney, and your attorney's not on your side because he's trying to settle as fast as he can. Just like the policeman that beat the woman. The taxpayers lost $1.5 million.
Not him.
Right.
Not us.
Exactly.
So we are playing with house money. It's not our money. It's like going to a casino and they give you $1 million every time you go in. He got to retire with his pension, so he'll go join some other police department. So,
Sarge, I want to swing down to Eddie Lamons. You had a question.
First, I would like to tell us thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
you're going to
I like
get
how you
more of
put
this
that.
on a weekly
Oh,
basis, every Thursday, 5
that's
p.m.
beautiful. But the word here is psychological. So when we apply to become a quote unquote police officer, isn't there like a psychological evaluation that's involved with that? So, you know, especially when you're in the heat of the night or the heat of the moment, you know, you don't have much time to decide whether or not to release or. So there's psychological tests that one must go through, and that renders whether or not you're capable of walking the streets with a weapon. Am I not correct?
no, you're not correct. There's no test that we get like you take a blotcher. They give you something that's minute, but nothing determines whether you pull a trigger or not pull a trigger.
Right.
Because they don't give you a fear test.
No.
And we pull triggers because you're fearful of the person in front of you. You can't take people that's never been in your neighborhood and think that we're going to put them in your neighborhood. They're not scared. All their life they've been told, you go to South Central LA, you're going to die and get shot.
gonna get you.
So they're shaking when they get out of their car.
Program.
And for the people that
The
stay
program.
in your neighborhood, there's two things that go on in your neighborhood. And really quickly is that they're going to disrespect you, or they're going to shoot you because they're fearful of you.
Now, what I saw in that video, which was taped in the daytime, right?
Yes.
Was there was an officer, of course, driving the vehicle, and in front of him was nothing. So he's driving down the alleyway, and on the right-hand side of the alleyway is, of course, the gas station. Now, from what I saw, the brother was already parked.
He had double backed.
Oh, he had
Yeah.
right,
No, meaning that the cop double backed.
right,
saw him.
right, because he was
is what's reported
Right.
from the cash dam.
right.
He was in pursuit of this guy, may be caught, and Sergeant Franklin may be able to give us some
what
insight
happened
from
is
a cop's eye.
we can
view.
pass you and we can see you without a seatbelt, which means we got to turn around and come back.
Right.
But we came back for an infraction. So the probable cause of the seatbelt, we got to get that out of our mind because we can't he can justify his probable cause.
Okay.
So we shouldn't argue the probable cause. What we should know is you stopped them for an infraction, which means your gun should not have came out of your holster at all. Zero, none.
That's
See,
so
that's
obvious,
that's what I
man.
don't get, because he wasn't stopped. He was already stopped getting out of the vehicle. And so now here's this whole scenario that's being painted that didn't even take place on the video footage, but this is what they're saying. That's what I saw.
All right, guys, we got to go to a break because we want to set the table. Don't take those headphones off yet, Sarge.
I won't.
Wanted to set the table. We've got coming up after this brief break one of the co-founders of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition membership. 100,000 people have gotten on board with this message. They've got billboards around the country that say, "Cops say no to prohibition." How about that? So coming up after the break, we've got Peter Christ, retired captain for the New York Police Department. So in honor of that, for all of you New Yorkers, we know you Laker haters. So go ahead over to NewYorkTalkLive.com and check out the show. Also, Eco the Wolf has joined us. We're going to switch up the table a little bit, get him to join us on the mic, and, of course, get Brother Tariq to come back. After the break, more Marijualogist. Do not move.
Ow.
Why'd you still up, huh? Oh, would you dismiss her? What is pure?
Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. You're tuned in to LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bay back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bay Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bay Show, exclusively on latalklive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Tika Lark Fleming inviting you to join me every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for MP Chronicle Presents The Black Girl Show. Join us as we discuss politics, pop culture, and the other side of Black LA. So don't forget to tune in to MP Chronicle Presents The Black Girl Show every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey y'all, I'm Shaquem Williams, and I'm the host of The Shock Factor here on LA Talk. We broadcast to the world every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Live music, live performances. We're just live. Chef Momo, Erica Ash, and once again, your host, Shaquem Williams. So come join us every Friday here at LA Talk Live, the world-leading broadcasting internet radio station. The Shock.
It's a menage a trois from the woman's point of view. P.R. Hawkins brings you this live stage adaptation of excerpts from her sensational ebook, Menage a Trois. This show is for the grown and sexy. Don't miss this limited engagement playing at the Hudson Main Stage Theater in Hollywood.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Marijualogist. This week's episode is going to be a great one, man. I tell you, we've got some great guests in the studio. Joining us now on the mic, of course, we've got my main man, E-Core the Wolf.
Yes.
Be sure to tune in next Friday, first Fridays of every month, for his special show, The Wolf's Den. He's got a great lineup of artists coming up this coming Friday, so be sure to check that out.
Yes.
Brother Tariq has joined us as well. Welcome, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, we've got Eddie Lamons, the Green Goddess, and of course, Sergeant Randy Franklin joins us. But without further ado, I want to introduce someone who I feel is very special to us, because when this show started, it began as a notion that there was no voice for what I had, in a very short span of time, come to understand to be a group of people out there who were patients, who in fact were using cannabis for more than just getting high, who in fact found medicinal remedy in cannabis, which spawned political and social debate, but equally importantly, for me at least, also stimulated my mind to think of the economic impact that a reevaluation of a wrongly accused Schedule I drug, a reevaluation of that particular so-called drug we call medicine, could in fact not just be beneficial to sufferers of AIDS and cancers and epilepsy, and the list goes on. We'll get more into the medicinal and medical efficacy of cannabis as it applies to severely ill patients who found relief in it. That will come in latter shows. We're still just getting back on track in our dialogue about this. But we're very honored to have this particular gentleman, because as I grew in my understanding that this was more than just weed, pot, reefer, however we might lightly or colloquially refer to it, this was in fact a very important movement. And as I grew in my understanding of the movement of cannabis, I began to do some research and found this incredible group of men and women who, in fact, served at the very tip of the spear of what had become known in America as the drug war. Well, in the history of America, we've had some wins and some losses, and America has acknowledged that. More wins than losses. That's why we're the great country that we are. But when it came to the drug war, wow, big L.
Not for love.
Right. The gentleman that we have on the line who has taken time out on the East Coast, because it is 7:36 there. Again, one of the first, if not the first, member of this organization who joined us on our dialogue about cannabis and the drug war. He's also, as I mentioned earlier, the co-founder of an organization of, I believe, 10,000 members of law enforcement, from prosecutors to penalists to DEA agents to district attorneys. Incredible list that we talked to. This gentleman made it all happen for us. And again, as I mentioned earlier,
Incredible.
20 years at the tip of the spear in the battle of this failed war.
That's a warrior right there.
I would like to welcome very humbly and very proudly Mr. Peter Chris, who joins us on the Marijualogist tonight. And Peter.
All right, brother Peter Chris.
Are you with us?
All right now.
Yes, in fact, I'm a little embarrassed, but thank you for all the compliments.
Well, I thought you might be, but I don't think that those compliments even begin to express how very valuable and important your insight to me has been as a patient and as an advocate for safe and legal access for us. But it was really your greater insights. And as I mentioned to you, or mentioned earlier, we have another member of law enforcement on our panel tonight. He's going to be starting his new show, Probable Cause, next Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific. Sergeant Randy Franklin, who is not retired, in fact.
I like that name, too, Probable Cause.
So the notion that to have you guys together on our forum tonight, and again, I'm very honored because how enlightened I became listening to you and then continuing my research, checking out the website, leap.cc, seeing the videos there. 2 years, Peter, we go back. We've got some time in. And you were always ready, willing, and able to step to the mic and speak your unique perspective. Can you start by telling our listeners and now viewers, because this is all video, and we've got some really handsome shots of you up. I'm not sure if you're watching live.
Okay.
But I got some pretty sexy shots of you up there, Peter. I hope your
I
wife.
hope I'm dressed.
Yeah, you look. I would only represent you looking your best, my man. A little bit about yourself.
Okay.
In law enforcement to start.
I started with the town of Tonawanda Police Department as a rookie patrol officer in 1969. That is a suburb of the city of Buffalo. We had about 85,000 residents in the town, and we had about 120 officer police department. I retired from there 20 years later at the age of 42 in 1989 as a uniform patrol captain. Okay, I spent my whole time in uniform. It's the only part of the job that I really enjoyed because in the patrol function, you're the first one in. You take care of the problems when they're hot. You send them off to other people to follow up, and then you move on to the next problem. It isn't like being in the detective bureau where you have a backload of cases you're working on, all that stuff. Everything is fresh, new. You start every day with a clean plate, and you just do face-on-face police work, and I like that part of it. So I did 15 years as a patrol officer, but the only way you make more money in that profession is to get promoted. So I was getting close to retirement. I was 5 years away, so I took my first lieutenant's exam, got promoted to lieutenant, spent 2 years as lieutenant, then I got promoted to captain, spent 3 years as captain, then I retired. Just so people know, I did not become a police officer because I wanted to save the world from all the evil people. I became a police officer because at the age of 17, I remember standing in my parents' bathroom looking in the mirror, and I made a promise to myself, and the promise was, you will not have to work past your 45th birthday.
Okay.
That was my goal in life, to be retired before I was 45.
And what kind of job would do that?
At 17, the only place I really thought of then that was going to allow me to do that was the military, the service, so I joined the Navy. I always add this at this point because of my age and the era. I am a Vietnam era veteran, not a Vietnam War veteran. And I always make that perfectly clear anytime I mention my military service, because I lost a couple friends over there in that war, and I had some other friends of mine come back messed up from that war. And for me to even suggest that I went through that experience dishonors their pain and suffering. But I was in the service during that period. I served on a destroyer out of Norfolk, Virginia. Did 2 years active duty, decided very quickly when I was in the Navy that I didn't think I wanted to work for those people for 20 years. So I got my time in, moved back up to Buffalo, New York, which is where I was from, and in New York State I had two choices for a 20-year retirement. I could have been a firefighter or I could have been a police officer. I am not mechanical, and you got to be mechanical to be a firefighter because you got to understand building structure and stuff like that, and I have no aptitude for that. But on the other hand, BSing is 90% of police work.
Wow.
It's talking, settling problems, taking care of things, and I'm pretty good at that. So I started taking the exam, and like I said, in '69, I got on the job at the age of 22 and had a very successful career. I came to my conclusion, and this sometimes sounds a little shocking to people, I came to my conclusion about this drug policy before I became a cop. And what it had to do with was my growing up experience. Both of my parents were 42 years old when I was born in 1946. Wow. They did not plan me. They were celebrating the end of the Second World War and the end of August of 45, and I was born in the end of May of 46. So I'm a party guy. Right?
During that celebration,
oh wow! During that celebration, guy, you're a party guy.
Yeah. Usually, 42-year-old people aren't out having more kids when you already got two. They already had to.
They like, woo.
So I was brought up by people who were in their 40s and 50s rather than their 20s and 30s, so I had a little different view of the world. Secondly, a television program came on when I was about 14 years old called The Untouchables.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes.
Okay, Al Capone, Elliot Ness, all that stuff. Well, I had two people watching that program with me, my mother and father, who were 16 years old living in Buffalo, New York when alcohol prohibition started. And they were 29 years old and married to each other with my sister already born when alcohol prohibition ended in 33. So they lived through that experience.
Right.
Wow.
And we would talk about it. And I would ask my wonderful Baptist mother, why didn't it work? And she would say, because the people didn't support it. Okay. Then I would ask my fallen Catholic father, why didn't it work? And he would say, because it was a stupid idea when they thought of it. By the time I got really interested in that period. I read everything. I went to the library, got books. I'm not a student, but I'm a self-student. If I get interested in something, I want to find out about it. And I read everything I could. And by the time I got to be about 20, 21 years old, the idea or the fact that we had passed a constitutional amendment to begin alcohol prohibition kind of weakened my mother's argument, because it takes a lot of support to amend the Constitution.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And by the time I got to be about 21, I realized that my father was right. It was just a stupid idea. Now, you got to understand the period of time. We're talking about the mid-'60s here, early 60s. This is before Nixon kicked off the war on drugs, but we still had drugs were prohibited and so on and so forth. Well, I looked at what we were doing vis-a-vis drugs at that period of time, and I said to myself, the only difference between what we're doing now when it comes to drugs and what we did then when it came to alcohol, the only difference was the drugs, the type of drug it was.
Yeah.
Everything else Everything else was exactly the same. The gangsterism, everything was exactly the same. So I realized that if alcohol prohibition was a stupid idea, then our drug policy was a stupid idea too. I kept reading, and then I realized that here's where the problem lies. And, let me say this first. At 22, I became a cop.
Okay.
So I had a little sit-down with myself before I took the oath. And I said, everything you know about I was going to be called upon to enforce these laws. Everything I knew about this stuff was theory. It was all stuff I had read and came to opinions about. It was never anything I had done. So I said, in order to be fair, you got to give this a fair shot. So put all your old thinking on the back burner, take the oath, go do your job. By the time I was on the job about 4 years or so, I realized the other officer you have sitting there in the studio, I think, will agree with me on this. Drug enforcement was the only aspect of our job that no matter how vigorously I or my brother and sister officers did it, it didn't make any difference. Now, what I mean by that is this. We would have a series of burglaries in our community, and one of our officers would arrest the burglar, and for a while, not forever, but for a while, there wouldn't be any burglaries.
Right.
And we would take credit for that. We would say we took that bad person off the street, and we made our community better by doing that. Let me give you a story from back in the early 70s. We had a low-income housing project in the town of Tonawanda called the Sheridan Parkside Project. And a woman called in one day from the project and said, there's a man selling drugs right in front of my apartment right now. And she gave the address to the dispatcher, and they dispatched it. And before the beat car got there, one of our unmarked detective cars pulled up and grabbed the guy. They arrested him. They proceeded on their way back to the station, a journey of about 1.5 miles from the arrest site. And before they got back to the station, our dispatcher got a call from the woman. And she said, I called up about 10 minutes ago about this guy selling drugs in front of my house. What are you going to do something about it? And our dispatcher very smugly said to her, ma'am, I suggest you look out the window. We've arrested that guy. And she said, sir, I am looking out the window, and there's a guy selling drugs out in front of my unit right now.
In the move, somebody else stepped up in there.
That job was filled before the arrest got back to the station. No matter how many drug arrests we make,
that's right.
The drugs have been more available, pure. This is not the policy. The drug czar said in a presentation here a couple months ago that we understand that this drug problem in America is fundamentally a healthcare and an educational problem. And not one reporter asked the question that I thought was screaming to be asked, and that is, what other healthcare and educational problem do you suggest we spend $80 billion a year on the criminal justice system to deal with? If this is a healthcare and an education problem, we should be spending that money on healthcare and education, not on the criminal justice system.
Peter, if I could interject real quick, I think that was, in fact, one of the most significant things I learned by hearing you talk on this is that this is, in fact, a medical issue that we're faced with here.
Exactly. Just like we deal with alcohol and tobacco smoking.
It's public
health. Look at the success. The most addictive drug we know of in our society today is tobacco.
It's sugar.
Over the last 10 years, we have cut the number of adult cigarette smokers by 50% or more. And we did that without arresting one tobacco grower, without burning one tobacco field.
Wow.
All we did was a little something we learned from the Amish. We shunned people. Oh, I'm sorry, if you want to do that, you have to go outside. And we made it a little bit more difficult for people to smoke, and we educated people about the harms that can be caused, and we allow people to make their own choices. Law enforcement's job. We were created by a guy over in London, England, back in the early 1800s. Modern-day law enforcement was invented. And this guy's name was Robert Peel. And if you want to know why they call the cops in London Bobbies, it's because of Robert Bobby Peel. Okay?
So Bobby's boys.
Is it also true, Peter, may I ask, that COPS stands for Constable on Patrol?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Thank
exactly.
you.
That's exactly what COPS stands for. And PIG stands for pride, integrity, and guts.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's what we used to say back in the 70s when that word was bandied about.
You know, back in the day, when I was in junior high school, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and we had an organization called the Blue Pigs. But there were some decent officers, but they would go around to all the public schools, and they had a band. So the Blue Pigs were really famous in Detroit, Michigan back in like the late 70s, early 80s. And they would go around and play like music to all the elementary schools, junior high schools, and high schools, and everybody used to actually love the Blue Pigs.
Good public relations.
They were called the Blue Pigs.
Always PR. Yeah.
When Lord Peel created the London Police Department, what he did was, his own words, is he put a group of people into society who would protect people from other people doing them harm.
Right.
That's what we were designed to do. We were not created to enforce morality in society. That isn't what his idea was.
Say that again, Peter. Say that again, please.
Okay.
Not forced.
Okay, we were not created to enforce morality in society. We were created to protect people from other people doing them harm. And that's what we should be doing in society. Now, we've come a long way in this country in getting out of morality policing. I don't know about California, but in New York State, it was illegal to be gay until the year 2000. Okay? And we weren't the only state. In fact, I saw a thing on the gay issue on television a few months ago on PBS. They had a whole 3-hour program on the gay issue in America. And it started out with a blurb on the screen, and it said, in 1960, it was illegal to be gay in every state but Illinois. Now, the first thing I thought when I read that was, hats off to Illinois for being smarter than everybody else.
That's a home rule state, though. It's one of the 5 home rule states.
That, again, is another example of morality policing. When I came up with the name for this organization, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, I did not name it Law Enforcement Against Marijuana Prohibition. I did not even name it Law Enforcement Against Drug Prohibition.
No.
I named it Law Enforcement Against Prohibition.
Period.
And what that word means to me is this: the prohibiting of consensual adult behavior.
Right.
When you have activities between consenting adults that they all want to do together, they are not making anybody else do it. They are not doing it to anybody else who does not want it done to them, and they are all adults. When you make that activity illegal in a free society, you create crime.
Yep.
Because the people that were doing this were perfectly happy doing it, and now all of a sudden it's illegal. And here's the big kicker.
Where is the corpus delicti?
If there's money involved in this activity, you create violence in your society. Because if they have a dispute over the money, they don't have the courts to go to settle that dispute. They have to go to the streets with guns and violence. So what you do when it comes to that type of activity, like we do with cigarette smoking, you might want to shun it and not condone it, but you don't ever want to make it illegal, because all you're going to do is drive it underground, give yourself no ability to regulate and control it. They had a thing about the Super Bowl out in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, New York. And they were talking about when the Super Bowl was this year, they made all these prostitution arrests. And they were arresting 16, 17-year-old prostitutes. And we're here listening to this news on the television, and my lovely wife, Paula, is sitting at the other end of the couch, and she says, if they do what you think they should do, there wouldn't be any 16 or 17-year-old prostitutes anymore.
And where is the corpus delicti, sir?
Exactly, because what you have to do is regulate and control the activity, accept the reality that we don't call prostitution the world's oldest profession, because it was just invented last week. It has been on this planet as long as human beings have. You're not going to make it go away. So what you do is you learn to live with it so it does the least amount of problems in your society as possible. And that's what we have to do with the drug situation and all these other morality policing that they get. Here's one thing I want to mention real quick, then I'll let you shoot back. If you're going to enforce morality in your society through law enforcement, armed police enforcing morality. Here's a question you have to ask yourself first. Whose morality are we going to enforce?
Exactly.
Okay? Islam has a view of morality. In fact, they have many different views of morality, depending on which part of Islam you are in. Catholic Church has a view of morality. The Protestant religions all have different views of morality. Jews have views of morality. Buddhists. Which one should we make the law of the land? And before you pick one, I want to suggest you give the First Amendment a quick read.
Right.
Yeah. There you
Because you
go.
won't be able to do any of it.
Can we get a clap for that? Yes,
Right.
sir.
Right, I got you on that one.
First Amendment. There you go. Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, you are so correct and accurate with this.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Peter, you still with us?
Where is the injured party?
Peter,
Exactly. That's all I want is a victim. You show me a victim, we got a crime.
There you go.
You show me somebody, I don't like them doing that, that's not a victim.
That's not a
It's not a victim.
Because I had somebody say to me years ago that if you walk around in the society you live in for 24 hours, observing everything you can see,
That you didn't like.
and you do not see anything that offends you, you do not live in a free society.
Believe that.
Because part of living in a free society is there are people doing things every day that I don't think they should be doing,
But that's not
but
on
they
us.
aren't doing it to anybody else, and they aren't harming anybody when they're doing it. They might just be getting people upset about it.
Right.
But
That's it.
that's too bad. That's what we have to do in a free society, is be upset by other people. You know, I am not a religious person. I happen to be an atheist. But I am not anti-religious, and I am not evangelical about my atheism. I'm not trying to
But
change
it don't need to
anybody's
be.
mind. It's just the way I believe.
But the way
And
you
here's
sound-
what I know to be a reality. If somebody can come along and close your church, that means they could stop me from being an atheist.
That's it. That's it.
Right?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
the only way that I can make sure that I can have a right to be an atheist is to make sure that nobody closes your church.
Right.
That's right.
Even though I don't agree with what you say in your church, I still know that the liberty and the freedom is much more valuable to me, and so that I can believe what I want to believe.
But now, Captain,
There's- there's-
wait.
Everybody jumped in.
Wait, hold on a second. We're going to be in open forum, Peter, after the break, and we've got a lot of people chomping at the bit.
Great.
So
Salivating at the
I'm
mouth.
going to ask you to hold the line. We're going to go to a quick break and come right back. Ladies and gentlemen, the wise and insightful words of a man of much experience, Peter Criss, co-founder of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We're going to take a quick break. Be sure to stay tuned. We'll be right back. More invigorating dialogue with the Marijualogist. Do not go away.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and hosts of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
It started out like a totally normal day.
I love you.
I mean, I guess I was a little sweaty and I was definitely sore. I thought I had gas. Turns out I was having a heart attack. Heart disease is the #1 killer of American women. So now I take care of myself and tell the other women in my life to do the same. Make it your mission to save your life and the lives of the women you love. Find out more from the American Heart Association at goredforwomen.org.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bay back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bay Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bay Show, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Tika Lark Fleming inviting you to join me every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for MP Chronicle Presents The Black Girl Show. Join us as we discuss politics, pop culture, and the other side of Black LA. So don't forget to tune in to MP Chronicle Presents The Black Girl Show every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey y'all, I'm Shaquem Williams, and I'm the host of The Shock Factor here on LA Talk. We broadcast to the world every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Live music, live performances. We're just live. Chef Momo, Erica Ash, and once again, your host, Shaquem Williams. So come join us every Friday here at LA Talk Live, the world-leading broadcasting internet radio station. The Shock.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to this week's episode of The Marijualogist, the world's only show that gets to the very root of the issue of medical cannabis efficacy. That's our primary goal, of course.
Right.
We talk about the social, political, economic, and medicinal impact of cannabis on California and the globe. But our dialogue has, as it is today, expanded as we talk to some of the brightest minds when it comes to the issue of drugs in America and the drug war. On the line with us, we've got the one and only Peter Criss, co-founder of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition and a veteran of law enforcement. Peter.
Leap on him, Peter. Leap on him now.
You still with us? Now,
Leap
Peter,
on him.
I want to talk a little bit about Leap as an organization, and then I'm just going to unleash this tirade of comment that's chomping at the bit to dialogue with you. But Leap is comprised of, please explain.
Okay, well, anybody can be a member of LEAP, and we have over 100,000 total membership at this point. Between 5,000 and 7,000 of them are law enforcement people. The only people that speak for LEAP, if there's a LEAP speaker out there, it comes from the law enforcement segment of our membership. Those are the only ones that speak for the organization. The idea for LEAP came to me in the early 90s when I first retired and started getting into this issue, and I thought that an organization of law enforcement people, because I knew there was a lot of us out there that saw the failure of this, we worked it every day, we saw what was wrong with it, and I felt that we would bring to this discussion the same thing that the Vietnam Veterans Against the War brought to the anti-Vietnam War discussion. And this is what they brought to the discussion. When they got done speaking, you might disagree with their conclusion about what we should do in the war and all that other stuff, but nobody would ever stand up when they got done speaking and say, you don't understand the problem. Because they were veterans, they fought the war, they kind of understand the problem, okay? And I felt that a group of law enforcement people would bring the same thing to this discussion. nobody has ever said to me in 25 years that I have been doing this since I retired, nobody's ever said to me when I got done speaking, you don't understand the problem. I dragged a badge and a gun around for 20 years. I kind of got a little idea what the problem is, and I worked in all different levels of law enforcement, so I kind of see where the problem lies. And there's so many aspects to this. One of the things that and Ed will throw it to the group, one of the things that I like to point out, just so that we're all on the same page, we, in the United States of America, have the largest prison population on the planet Earth.
Yes, sir.
We lock up more people in this country than any other country in the world.
It's big business. It's big business.
Now, I would also like to add that we have one of the most efficient prison systems on the planet, and I'm only judging efficiency on the fact that if we put you in there, pretty basically you stay in there until we let you out.
That's true.
So,
that is true.
And that's the only, I'm not saying that we, get people trained for jobs. I'm just saying that we're efficient. We lock them up, they stay there.
That's why I tell people.
In that huge, efficient prison system, would any of you like to take a guess at how many drug-free prisons we have?
Not
Zero.
one. Not
None.
one. Not one.
We don't want
I know
them.
too many inmates.
And I
don't want them, right.
I know too many inmates.
I want you to remember, not one, even the Supermax ones have drug problems inside of them.
Exactly.
And I want everybody that's listening to remember that. And the next time they're driving around their community and they drive by that big building that's got a sign out in front of it that says drug-free school, remember this. The difference between the people in the school and the people in the prison is the people in the school have all their liberties.
Right.
And the people in the prison have none, and we can't keep drugs out of prison.
Right.
No. And we don't want to, because they provided them, the government did, with the scanning machine before they put them in the airport, so that they could scan people, and all prisons turned them down, so you can stick drugs anywhere you want to get in.
Exactly.
So that's why.
And not only that, as we touch upon prisons, let's also point out that we now have profit-making prisons in America.
Oh,
it's
we have
business.
people in America
Chrysler
who
GM.
have run corporations that make profit on depriving people of their liberty. That should not be a profit-making business.
No,
Not at all.
That
Not at
should be
all.
an expense that the government has to pay for, and so you do as little of it as possible. And now we've created profit-making prisons.
Couple of things
we got
here.
profit-making law enforcement.
Yes.
We got forfeiture
I was just
laws.
getting
We
into
got
that. I was
departments
just
that
going
are
to say.
funding their budgets off of
prison.
perceived
Off of
forfeiture
arrest.
money that they're going to bring.
That's why you get all these big numbers, and these prisoners getting all these big numbers. Because I had to tell somebody the other day about jail, prison, all that. I said, look, it's not. It doesn't make no inmate more tougher because he did 6 months to 6 years to 60 years. It says the same thing. You dealing with the same situation. It's just that the fact that whatever your crime is or was, you're just getting the numbers for that crime. Because it doesn't make you any stronger, any tougher, anything.
It has
from
nothing.
1 day to 100 days to
Right.
100 years in prison.
It has
Or
really
jail. It's the
nothing-
same situation. It's a
It has
continuous
really,
cancer.
but it has really nothing to do with any of that.
None of that.
Because those prisons are storage spots for warehouse receipts.
Exactly.
And that's all prisoners are, and that's what the system of prison bonding is all about. And this is what this whole country's funding of so-called police enforcement, so-called prison industrial complex is using. Bonding, which comes from the word what? Bondage, which means slavery. So we're talking about 2.2 million new slaves. Slavery by any other name is still called slavery. They've changed the face of it several times, but it still ends up the same thing. Enslavement. They're not born that way, but they are enslaved. You see, and this is where, again, the language is so important. Why are we not arresting those people responsible for the 3,000 plus a day who die from cigarette smoking? Why are we not arresting the doctors who admit to being the second leading cause of death in this country? The AMA says, that's what they say in their own journal, in the JAMA, that they are the second leading cause of death in this country. Why aren't they being arrested and put in jail? And then all these officers of the so-called police and law enforcement that are just going around shooting people
This is
in the back. I mean, you know,
And
in the front and the back.
In the hip.
Nighttime, daytime, nighttime, any old time.
In front of the store, in front of the kids. It don't matter.
So this is, this is not. You know, there's no. Why are we not handling the problem from that standpoint instead of from the other standpoint, which is public relations, Hollywood, TV shows. You know, this kind of thing to soften and to create another perception of what police and policing is all about and what law enforcement is all about, what they're supposed to do. So there's really no consensus in the society because this is not discussed. This is only followed like church, and that's what I have to say.
I'm gonna say this. I was like you in the military, and I grew up in a project, so I saw.
That's Randy Franklin, ladies and gentlemen.
Franklin, I'm sorry. And I grew up in a project, and I got on one of those destroyers that you was in charge of. I was a Marine, and we won't get in that. And I went overseas in 1979, and I was amazed at the free drugs that they had over in. You go to a bar, they give you hash or cocaine, but it wasn't illegal to do it.
Philippines.
It was only illegal in America. And I, like you, I asked myself the question about prohibition. And all my life, I've learned to do one thing, follow the money. And so when I realized that even during prohibition, that all the immigrants that came over from Europe, they could make beer. And like small business people, they made tons of distilleries, and they had small beer companies. And what I learned from prohibition is that after they started prohibition, they shut all of them down, and only 3 major companies survived prohibition start what they're doing now. So I followed the money in prohibition to figure out that's why they had prohibition, because it was a stupid law in the first place because nobody stopped drinking.
Mr. Bronfman?
But the way you wipe it out.
It's interesting when you mention that, because one of the things we miss, all of our drug laws, all of them, including alcohol prohibition, I'll get to that when I wind up. All of our drug laws were racially motivated when they were first instituted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The first anti-opiate laws you ever saw in America were on the West Coast. We were having all these Asians pouring in the late 1800s into America looking for a new life. They were bringing their drug of choice with them, opium. That's what they used over there. They brought it with them. And there were articles in the paper that talked about them luring the white women into the opium dens and stealing them away. Okay? That was opium. The first anti-marijuana laws we ever saw in this country were in the Southwest. There it was a little different. This marijuana, when those workers from Mexico smoke it, they don't work as hard in the field, so we have to take it. That was what the articles in the paper were. The first anti-cocaine laws we saw in this country were in the 1920s. Here we go again. It was those black jazz musicians who were stealing the white women with the white powder. Now, I want to make one little quick comment about this stealing the women. In order to steal something, it has to be property.
Right.
So I just want to throw that into the equation. And here's the one that everybody misses, and you were just talking about it, alcohol prohibition. And I have people say to me, alcohol prohibition racial? Sort of.
Absolutely.
In the late 1800s, early part of the 20th century in America, there was a period known as the Protestant Reformation. And it was a resurgence of Protestantism all throughout America. Tents, they were setting up tents, and speakers were going out, and they were getting people and everything. There were 2 groups of people that those Protestants didn't like. One group was called Catholics, and the other group was called Jews. And pouring into Ellis Island, just like somebody earlier said, at the beginning of the 20th century, were Italian and Irish Catholics and Jews from Western Europe. So we couldn't make being Catholic illegal, because, hey, we're a free country, so we made what we perceived their drink to be, or their drug to be illegal, alcohol. And who were the gangsters and thugs of alcohol prohibition? Italian, Irish, and Jews. And Jews.
That's right. Exactly.
So just a little historical note. What we're doing now, when Bill Bennett was drug czar, I remember him giving a speech, and he said that 80% of the cocaine users in America are white, middle-class males with a high school education.
Yep.
Now, you show me one prison in America that reflects that.
No such a thing.
But that's what
you haven't even seen in the last so-called year. I mean, many years, whatever. The emergence of so many black men being shot or whatever. I mean, you don't really see the TV shows where like look, these white men are getting shot or whatever. Because if there was in our society, it would be like a national cry out. It would be a big call out, like what is happening to our young white
don't
men.
Think it won't.
And how come that we have to stop this? And it's an alarming rate because 10 white men got shot in the last 8 years. Like really? We getting shot in the last 8 minutes. 20,000.
There's a few things underlying things that are part of that, and one of them is, and words are my business, so I feel that words are very important.
Very important, powerful.
When Nixon called this a war on drugs and used the war term, okay, he created a thinking in the society because in a war, you have the people that are on your side and the enemy.
Exactly.
Now, let me tell you something. When I was a patrol officer, I was a senior training officer. So we would have new officers come on the job, and I would get them fresh out of school, and I'd have them for 6 weeks, and I'd train them, all that stuff. I used to tell them that the weirdest thing about this job, being a cop, the strangest thing about it is this. Every time you make an arrest, you're arresting your boss.
Wow.
Because we work for the people. Then Nixon came along and told us, oh, no.
They ain't the boss.
The people are the enemy, or at least some of them are.
But that's until they got caught.
I would like to say, Mr. Peter Christ, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm Eddie Lamond's the fastest man in L.A., and I have a show here on L.A. Talk Live as well, too. And I've been listening to you, and I would like to say thank you because you've been consistent. And what you've been consistent with is knowing your boundaries as a policy enforcer, which is to protect the public's safety. And you have not went outside of your boundary. So
as an atheist, on top of that,
as an atheist, and when you say you're an atheist, I would like to feel that I know exactly where you're coming from.
Exactly.
Not to say that you don't believe in a higher power, but hey, if there is one, please knock on my door and let me know who you are.
Right, so I can
So I get it. I get it, and I want to tell you thank you. Thank you for being consistent.
Thank you.
Thank you for knowing your boundaries.
Thank you.
I just want to mention something about atheism. One of the things that when I mention that sometimes people will say to me, what's it like to live without faith? And I tell them, wait a minute, I'm an atheist. I'm not an agnostic.
Right.
Hello.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I was brought up a Baptist kid. I got baptized by choice at the age of 13. I joined the church and everything, and it wasn't until years later that I changed my opinion about
that.
The
hypocrisy.
And the reason I'm an atheist and not as an agnostic is because I was brought up a Baptist and I have faith. It takes just as much faith to believe that there is no God, that you cannot prove the non-existence of, as it does to believe that there is a God
exactly.
that you
That's
cannot
bold.
prove. Both of those things are acts of faith.
I love
they are
it.
both faith started.
Hey, Peter, I've got to point this out, and then I want to swing to Sergeant Randy Franklin. I'm going to ask what I consider to be a dumb question, but I was taught in school very early on that there are no dumb questions.
It's never dumb questions. Call mouth don't get fed.
You know what the word Christ means, yes?
And your last name is that.
Correct.
His last name is that, right?
And to think that your last name, your birth name,
Christ.
Christ. Pronounced Christ. But spelled, the same as Christ.
So
you are, in fact, an anointed king
yes, you are.
of information when it comes to your position in life and have been, I might say, and with all due respect to your atheistic views, divinely appointed to the mission to which you serve.
He's very Christ-like.
Right?
Very Christ-like.
Heard, man.
He's Christ-like.
Let me tell you a quick story about my name. I put in New York State for a vanity plate. This is back in the early 70s.
I remember you told
for
the
my
story.
motorcycle with just my last name on it.
Okay. Oh, Lord.
Oh, God.
Hold on.
Hang on. It got rejected.
What?
They said that it was inappropriate.
Wow.
So I called the Special Plates Division. I got a hold of the head of the Special Plates Division, and I'm talking to the woman on the phone, and I didn't tell her where I worked. I was on the job at the time. I was a cop. But I told her, I said, look, this is my last name. It's pronounced Christ. It was my father's last name. He pronounced it Christ. It was my grandfather's last name.
So
he
forth and
pronounced
so
it
on.
Christ. It was my great-grandfather's
What can I do?
last name.
What can I do to this?
He pronounced it Christ. Now, I said to her, just because you have somebody on the line that makes these choices who cannot read the word Christ and can only read the word Christ.
Wow.
I said, that appears to be your problem and not my problem. And she says, okay, resubmit your application. So I resubmitted the application. It got rejected again.
Wow.
But this time it got rejected because it had already been issued to somebody. Now, I didn't tell these people where I worked, okay, that I was a cop. So I ran a check on it to see who got it. And it came back. Now, if you get a special plate approved to you, you have 12 months to put that on a car. And if in 12 months you don't put it on a car, then it goes back into the hopper and somebody else can take it. So I knew that.
Right.
So I checked the plate. It came back to an address in the city of Buffalo. I drove down to the address in the city of Buffalo. There was no such address.
Wow.
So I waited
Flam.
11 months. And I resubmitted my application. And that is the plate that's on my car today.
Oh,
Nice.
I love it. Good story.
Right.
He knew the
And
law.
I want to tell you one other quick story because we're getting near the end, and this is important to me because it's part of the education I went through, and I think it shows how when you're out there talking to people, you think it doesn't make any difference, but every once in a while you make a major change.
Yeah.
I came into work one night for a 4 to 12 shift. There's a note in my box, see the chief. I go up to the chief's office. He hands me a letter. There was something going on at the local high school, and he was invited to it, and we had to show the badge, but he wasn't going to go, so I had to go. So I wait until about 7 o'clock. I go over to the school. I'm wandering around talking to people, don't want to be there, but I'm doing what I got to do. And I get into a conversation with, and this is the term I prefer because there's nothing pejorative about it. I got into a conversation with a high melanin content woman. And where we're talking about different stuff, and I said something that caused her to look at me and say, well, that's a sexist comment. And I looked at her and said, like I always said back then, no, you don't know me. I'm not sexist. I was just. And then she looked me square. I'm there in uniform, badge and gun, the whole bag. She looks me square in the eye and she says, let me tell you something.
Okay.
You're a white male in a white male privileged society. You cannot help but be sexist and racist.
Okay.
And I suggest you get yourself into recovery as soon as possible.
Oh, my God.
She told him.
Like a TI is.
I looked at her and I kind of laughed. I thought, you don't know me. And I walked away. I thought, how dare she say something like that to me? And I thought how cool it was that she had the nerve to say that to me right to my face. It wouldn't go away. It kept bothering me. It kept bugging me. About 3 or 4 days later, something came to my mind. I told you that story about me coming into the police department, this rookie patrol officer, 22 years old, leaving there as a captain. That's a hell of an impressive story, isn't it? Let's go back to 1967 when I took the patrol man's exam that women were not allowed to take.
Wow.
What?
Wow. Yep. Yep.
Now let's look at my wonderful, impressive career and start out by saying, having more than 50% of my opposition or my opponents eliminated for me, I went on. It doesn't sound quite as impressive anymore, does it? And I realized that there is a subtlety to privilege that when you have it, you don't even realize you do. You just think it's normal.
So it's normal. Then people abuse it then.
And that's when my recovery started, was from that woman, and I think I've been doing pretty good over the years.
Have you ever? Do you know this lady?
And
to
how
this
long
day?
have you been married now, Peter?
I
I'm
know,
sorry.
right?
I've been married, not to her, but I've been
Okay.
married 40
okay.
years.
I know.
Not to
Have
her.
you-
I've never
I-
seen her again. Don't
okay.
know her name.
Okay.
She probably doesn't remember me from a bag of beans either.
Right.
She got to reintroduce me to. But she changed my life. She
Changed your life.
fundamentally
That's
said
awesome.
something to me
That's-
that turned a light on for me
But it's-
and made me change my behavior.
But it's great that you accepted that. You know, you was receptive to it and open
Absolutely,
to
that
it, and
was-
didn't shun it because I'm a white man. Listen to this, black woman.
That's
and,
his sensitive
you know,
side.
That's the,
All right,
that's the
guys.
spirit in you.
Now, with all due respect, if you don't mind, as your humble moderator of tonight's
Yes.
episode of The Marijualogist,
Right.
I'd like to leave the final 5 minutes to both Sergeant
officers.
Randy Franklin,
Yeah, that'd be
retired
nice.
Captain Peter Christ, if you guys would like to talk. And I got to preface this by saying I sacrificed you, Sarge, on the altar of Leap and said that I could get you to become a member. I'm joking.
I am going to become a member.
One of the first questions
is.
Peter
Are you?
asked
All
me,
right.
that's
He
what
said
I'm
he was gonna
talking
be a
about.
member.
Asked me, is he a member? I'm like, Peter, you never know. So I want to leave the last
Right.
few minutes to you guys. Go.
Well, I want to do that, Peter. I want to talk about, like you said, drugs. I grew up in a drug world, so I grew up in a project and I knew it. And I did join the police department, and I got on in '84 after coming out of the Marine Corps. But understanding drugs, I joined a drug task force, or they persuaded me to join a drug task force in South Central LA in 1987.
Oh my gosh.
And 3 months later, I asked to get off that task
So crack
force
was banging.
because we were the most crookedest organization in South Central LA.
Wow.
We were going down the block booking everybody. If you called for a crack house, we would book you too. I finally had to go to my lieutenant in Southeast, so just so you know, I ain't lying, in Southeast Division, and told him, get me off this task force or I'll have to start testifying against the police.
Wow.
Because I told several people, you're not guilty of anything. And they would tell me, well, you need to Davis him and type him up. I'm not typing him up, say he was a dope dealer. He's not. He's 86 years old. And they don't know where in hell he was selling drugs. So I off to get out of that. But then when I saw the Ollie North testimony in front of Congress,
Right.
where the government actually bought and brought drugs into this country, and Ollie make no excuse for it. He admitted it. He said, I shred documents, I did whatever I had to do, and I did it with the president's knowledge.
did.
Right.
And you ain't about to put me in jail.
That's right. 'Cause
Then
I'm gonna
you
tell
knew-
everybody.
Then you knew where drugs came from, and drugs should be illegal. In fact, Gary Webb wrote a book about it called Dark Alliance. You should read. I
Yes.
mean, everybody should read it about
Yes.
the CIA and the cocaine traffic
right.
back to the poor neighborhoods in this
Yes,
country.
sir. Yes,
that was
sir.
done by the government. And in fact, there's a new movie out called Kill the Messenger.
Oh, I'm
Gary
going
Webb
to see
story.
that today. I'm going to see
Wow.
that.
That everyone
Wow,
should
that's-
see that movie too.
On the way to go see it right
so if you want to know why drugs in America, why they're illegal, I have no idea, and why they in America. I said these are the things you need to know, and who's the biggest person behind it is our government, and why they keep it illegal is because they need to put people in prison because it's a business.
That's right.
And prison is strictly a business. It's not there to rehabilitate anyone.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, sir.
No.
It's a new insane asylum.
So I was on those task force with you. In fact, I stopped arresting people for marijuana a long time ago. long time ago before now. It's just an infraction in this country. And if you don't know, in California, it's an infraction. Less than an ounce is a ticket. Don't let anybody take you to jail for it.
No.
And if you have a doctor note, it's free. So we can't even book you or take your drugs from you.
Exactly.
Right.
Just so you
Thank
know
you.
that times are changing, but you have to know what the law is.
Right.
So don't let
You
any
know-
police hook you up and search you, do everything they can do to you, all right?
Okay.
Understand the
You know-
law.
Sarge,
Yes, Peter.
I just want to tell you, I was up in Vermont about a year ago doing a presentation at Rotary clubs and stuff like that. And people would come up to me at the beginning when they first came in. They'd say, hey, did you hear? We just decriminalized marijuana here in Vermont. And I would say to them, yeah, congratulations on that. We did that in New York State in 1975. Give me a call in 30 years. Let me know how it's going for you. You know,
That's right.
And then I would say to them this. But I do want to congratulate you on another law you just passed. And they said, what's that? And I would say, you just legalized murder here in Vermont. Well, some of them looked at me kind of shocked, said, legalized murder? What are you talking about? I said, your governor just signed legislation that legalized physician-assisted suicide. Now, before the governor signed that, changing that law, if a physician had assisted somebody in dying, they could have been charged with manslaughter, which is a murder charge.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you people in Vermont understand that if two people want to do something together, even if one of them wants to die and the other one wants to help them,
Yep. They're
that's
gonna have-
between them.
That's
It's
all.
not something the
And-
government should prohibit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Right.
Cannot
I'm
do
hurting. I'm
I
over here in
know,
so much
right?
severe pain, and I'm ready for. Hey, listen, man. I don't want to deal with this. You telling me you're gonna make me stay here and deal with this thing going on in my heart, and my chest, and my neck, and all that? Man,
Right.
please.
All right. Peter,
Great job, Peter.
I cannot begin to thank you
Thank you.
enough
That was good.
for all that you brought to our show as usual.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes,
In
sir.
your
Randy.
dialogue.
Randy.
Well, thank you for sharing your audience with me.
You're
We greatly
welcome.
Appreciate it, Leap.
Thank
I
you so
will
much,
join
man.
Leap. I want you to know that. That's Randy
All right.
Franklin.
Yes,
I
sir.
will be a member.
Sergeant
aboard.
Randy Franklin.
I'm going to make sure you both connect up there, Peter.
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, I just can't thank you enough, man. And you are, in fact, the Christ in
Of
the
leap.
battle.
The
The
Christ of the
Karas.
leap.
It's called
for law
Karas.
enforcement.
The Karas of law enforcement.
Indeed.
Mr. Chris.
I want to have you back as often as you'd like to return. We are back in full swing. We intend to take this message, as we did in the past, around the globe and bringing some common sense and dialogue to this whole issue of the drug war, and certainly continue our discussion on medical cannabis efficacy. In the background, the sounds of Bob Dylan. Thank you for acknowledging me there, Brother Tariq. Once again, Peter, thank you. God bless you. We'll talk soon.
Right?
And get us Jack as well. Let's get you guys on the phone together with Randy Franklin and shake the ground. What do you say?
Shake the ground. Stomp the ground and make the earth shake.
Shake it down.
Peter Christ, everybody. Thank you once again, Peter. Have a
Right
great
on, thank
weekend.
you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Peace and
Peace and love, Peter.
man.
We love you here.
Peace and
What a
love.
show this is,
Yeah,
huh?
that was
Yeah.
great.
What
That
a
was
show this
wonderful.
has been.
All right.
Yes,
It's all
sir.
about
Right on,
information.
right
It's
on.
all about information. You know, that's what I said. We're not a stoner show. We're not,
Not at
like
all.
this. You know, anybody on camera right now smoking marijuana and just out here all, hey, what's up, dude? This is all about information. You see, we have Brother Sergeant Randy Franklin here. You know,
Indeed.
we have
Round of
Brother
applause for
Peter
him as
Chris
well.
from the LEAP organization, law enforcement against prohibition people. So. Tune in to our station. Tune in to our shows every. Actually, we're getting ready to change over to Fridays.
Fridays,
at 4 o'clock.
Fridays at 4 o'clock.
Starting next week, Fridays at 4 o'clock, you'll see the Marijualogist show. So tune in if you want
What's the
more
phone
information.
number?
323-473-3100. Again, that's 323
3100.
Find time to give out the phone number. We're gone.
Well,
So, ladies and
They're
gentlemen,
still watching though.
we will see you next Friday.
Yes.
Next
Yeah.
Friday now at 4 p.m. The Marijualogist continues. So be sure to tune in then. I want to thank everybody who joined me today on the panel. What an incredible show. I got to tell you, this conversation will continue.
Yes.
And we want you to continue to stay tuned.
Sponsored by greencrosses.com.
That's right. Official sponsors of the
This is
show.
sponsored greencrosses.com.
Thanks to greencrosses.com.
Right
Indeed.
now.
Round of applause for them as well. And thank
The
you,
Green
Randy
Goddess.
Franklin, for joining us.
All right.
The Green Goddess. Brother Tariq, Eddie Lamont.
all right now.
Sarge, your show next Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Probable cause.
The inaugural
Can't wait.
episode.
I can't wait. Probable cause.
Okay, probable
We'll be
cause.
talking about
indeed,
Ferguson
indeed,
again.
indeed.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Hey.
I got a litany. I have a litany of questions there. I got a litany of things.
And the very next day at 6 p.m. on Fridays.
At 6.
Superforce Fridays, Superforce Radio.
Superforce Radio.
And don't forget the shock factor.
The shock
And
factor.
don't forget the Wolf's Den.
The
All
Wolf's
right.
Den. Ow!
But I wanted to
Going
get that
down.
plug in one more time for Superforce Radio.
Yes.
Friday, 6 p.m., your brand new show.
Right, brand new show.
Eddie
Friday,
Lamont.
Superforce Radio, 6 p.m. Standard Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Brooklyn stand up.
Brooklyn
And that's
style.
Friday, October 3rd. Be
Yes.
Whole
Be
new
there.
lineup, fall season. You'll
We
want to
got-
stay
hey,
tuned.
all
Great
the super-
programming. First Fridays every month. The Wolf's Den, big lineup this
Yeah,
weekend
yeah.
for that. So be sure to tune in.
Major.
All next week. Major
No
things
doubt.
going down. Big things popping, small things dropping. Hey, everybody, stay up. Any last words? Say goodbye to your
Hey,
mama
God
now.
bless everybody, and
God bless you all.
See you next
tuning in.
week.
Thanks to my friends out there in
Thanks for
Monterey,
listening.
California, checking in. My phone girl out there, Miss
Will my daughter do
Right, you know, I got all the friends and everything.
All right, good night, folks. Stay tuned.
Mary Lee out there.
Peace and love.
Top of the hour.
Miss
Be sure to
Robert
stay
Peterson.
tuned. True Magazine coming up next at 8 p.m. tonight. Do not go away. More great programming coming to you from the leader in internet broadcast, LA Talk Live, and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. Stay tuned.
It destroy the world and me say all over. Me talking to the English, the man America. Me talking to Canadian down to South Africa. Me talking most of all to me people in Jamaica. Now me leader opposition and me prime minister, president, the Queen of England too. Who know me utter? Who no legalize the herb? And who no get rid of the crackhead them? So who no listen me? We're having a conference tonight. And the conference is to wipe out the coke and the crack pipe. So come on, everyone. Let's get rid of all drugs the best we can. So make we legalize the herb, and we get rid of the heroin them. Because you me know drugs I get so high. This your one year in a nice, you know I. The one when name ice will freeze your brains to the sky. Won't hear me now and when me come
Thank you for tuning into LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. Original reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.